It all started with a strange buzzing sound in the apartment. At first, I thought it was just the old wiring in the building acting up. My apartment wasn't exactly new, and I'd had plenty of electrical issues since I moved in. The sound was faint, barely noticeable during the day, but at night, when the world grew quiet, it seemed to grow louder, almost like it was coming from inside my walls. I tried everything to get rid of it. I had an electrician check the place. He said everything looked fine. I switched off every appliance, checked every outlet, even disconnected the Wi-Fi. The buzzing persisted, low and rhythmic. Worse still, it seemed to be getting louder every night. Then, one evening, it wasn't just the buzzing anymore. I started hearing something else. Voices. I was lying in bed, trying to drown out the constant hum when I heard a whisper. I bolted upright, convinced someone was in the apartment, but no one was there. It wasn't clear what the voice had said, but it was undeniably human. I checked every corner of the apartment. The doors were locked, the windows shut tight. Still, the voice came again. I couldn't make out what it was saying, but it was there, faint, almost a hiss, like someone trying to talk through static. I couldn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, the whisper grew louder, the buzzing angrier. The next morning, I called the landlord. I was half expecting him to laugh me off the phone, but he didn't. He was silent for a long moment before asking me if I had ever heard about the previous tenant. I hadn't. She wasn't all there in the head, he said. His voice hushed, like he didn't want anyone to overhear. Claimed the apartment was bugged, thought the government was spying on her, monitoring her every move through hidden microphones. I thought she was crazy, but now, his voice trailed off. I felt a chill crawl up my spine. That evening, I came home to find the buzzing louder than ever. The whispers, though still unintelligible, were constant now, like someone trying to communicate but stuck behind a thick veil of static. I stood in the middle of my apartment, turning in circles, trying to pinpoint where it was coming from. Then I noticed something. The buzzing wasn't just random noise, it was consistent, like a pattern. I grabbed my phone, opening an app that could detect audio signals, and sure enough, there it was. A low-frequency pulse repeating at regular intervals. I had no idea what it meant, but I knew it wasn't normal. It felt deliberate. That night, the voices grew louder, no longer just whispers. They were almost clear enough to make out. I sat on the edge of my bed, my heart pounding in my chest, listening to the garbled sounds trying to break through the static. Help! Trapped! Here! Us! My breath caught in my throat. I grabbed my phone and started recording. The sound was muffled but unmistakable. Voices, multiple of them, all overlapping and distorted, begging for help. The realization hit me like a freight train. These weren't random noises, they were messages, but from where? Or worse, from who? The next few days were a blur. I barely slept, consumed by the buzzing and the voices. Every time I tried to decipher what they were saying, it felt like they were speaking directly to me, pleading for something. I tried to ignore it, but the more I did, the louder they got. And then the banging started. It came from the walls. At first, I thought it was the neighbors, but then I realized it was synchronized with the buzzing. A thud every time the pulse hit. The walls were vibrating. I couldn't take it anymore. I grabbed a hammer from the closet and, in a fit of desperation, started tearing into the drywall. Chunks of plaster flew, revealing the bare frame of the apartment. I ripped through the insulation, expecting to find wires, pipes, something. Instead, I found nothing. No wires, no hidden speakers. Just the cold, empty space between the walls. But the sound, the buzzing, was louder than ever now, reverberating through the very bones of the apartment. I was about to give up, when I spotted something wedged between the wooden beams. A small, metallic device, no larger than a thumb. It was old, covered in dust, and connected to a thin wire that ran deeper into the wall. I yanked it free, and the buzzing stopped. For a moment, there was silence. Blessed silence. But then, just as I was about to breathe a sigh of relief, the voices came back. This time, they were loud, deafening, clear. "You found us!" My phone buzzed in my hand. A new notification. I unlocked the screen and stared in horror at what I saw. The message wasn't from any app I recognized. "We're inside." Before I could react, the lights flickered and went out. I was plunged into darkness, the apartment suddenly colder, as if the very air had been sucked out. The walls began to groan, a low rumble that vibrated through the floor. And then, in the pitch black, I heard the voices again, closer this time, like they were right behind me. "Run!" I never saw what was chasing me, but I didn't need to. I bolted for the door, heart hammering in my chest, as the sound of something heavy and relentless followed me. Just as I reached the exit, the apartment was plunged into total silence, and as I stood there, gasping for breath in the hallway, I looked back at the dark, empty space I had just fled from. The buzzing had stopped,